About mobile discovery, it looks interesting.
Thank you for the kind introduction. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Slavko Komarnytsky, and I'm assistant professor of pharmacogenomics with NC State University. And we will get it right in the middle of the East Coast if you're curious where we are. And we are part of the research campus, which means each of the professors who are located at the campus has a dual appointment. We have an appointment with the research campus, but we also have an appointment with the main campus in Raleigh, North Carolina. So, I mean, a 2-hour trip between the two places is quite a common thing for us. A lot of earlier speakers did a very good introduction, so I kind of skipped through a couple of the initial slides. We do have a large problem with microbial resistance to antibiotics. And we also do know that in the last 50 years, we pretty much didn't discover a single new class of antibiotics. Every single antibiotic that we're using today in the hospital was discovered a long time ago, right? We have a second and third generation of antibiotics which are modified by pharmaceutical companies, but there haven't been a single discovery, and I'm stressing it again, a single discovery in the 50 years except for one in 1984, but even that one didn't result in a single drug on a market to fight bacterial infection. Right? So we are in the middle of a large crisis and we are realizing it all in a number. In addition to all that, pharmaceutical companies are not interested, or at least not interested enough to discover new antibiotics because the margins, the profit margins for this type of drugs are very low. Right? Once a person gets an infection, all you need to do is to take an antibiotic for 10 to 14 days and you are fine. Right? So you never take this drug again. This is not an ideal drug for a pharmaceutical company who tries to make a profit by developing a drug that will be taken every day for the rest of your life. There are some other problems with antibiotic discovery. Obviously, in the 80s and 90s, we believed that synthetic chemistry can do everything, and as long as we do screening of synthetic libraries, we'll discover tons of new antibiotics. Well, it didn't happen. The natural products are quite difficult also to screen for, because if the research groups go out to the forest or jungle and they find something which is active, often enough they don't have access to it, they can't reproduce it, or they don't have enough material collected in order to perform their type of research. In addition to all that, there is an ethics issues, right? Because if researchers from other countries come to developing world searching for new antibiotics, there are intellectual property rights, there are ethnic people rights, and everything else which is in place to basically make the discovery of new antibiotics from natural sources very difficult. So we thought about it for quite a while, trying to understand what we can do to change the situation. And let me tell you a story which is quite different from what we heard today. Instead of taking research to the lab, what we decided to do is take the research outside of the lab. So what we are proposing is a mobile discovery program, right? It's a very simple idea. If I can create a kit which is simple enough for anybody to use and give it to anybody who is interested in discovering new antibiotics, suddenly instead of doing the research in the lab by myself and a small number of people in my lab, I can do a large-scale social science project where everybody who is interested in it will be discovering antibiotics in their local environment. So basically the idea is a simple kit, right, which is given to scientists, students, ethnic communities, anybody who is really interested in doing science, right, and they all participate in a screening program, finding new antibiotics. And just to show you how it works, I mean, the kit is very simple. It's just a couple of plastic pieces put together, a LB video to support bacterial growth. And the most important thing, of course, is you who picks up the kit and is really interested in antibiotic discovery, right? Because you have the access to the environments which I don't. You have the access to the samples which I don't. And you can do the meaningful discovery. In a way, all you need to do is to pick a set of 22 samples, right? Because that's what fit on 24 well plate plus 2 controls. And you do a simple antibacterial assay. Now the big question for us was, where is the bacteria is coming from, right? If I start to tell you, if I come to the school, or I come to the university, or I travel across the borders, and I tell you, I'll give you E. coli or any other bacteria, people freak out. You know, they say, well, you cannot do it, it's against the law. There are safety concerns, there are ethical concerns. So we found a very elegant way to go around it, and this is, each of people who are using the kit is a source of their own bacteria. Right? We realize that our saliva contains bacteria, and it's always there, and it's not pathogenic to us. Right? So as long as you perform a simple bacterial assay where your saliva is a source of bacteria, so basically all you do is spit on a plate, right? You can efficiently do a first primary screen for antibacterial activity, right? Once that realization, I mean, you cannot call it a discovery, a realization came into place, it was very easy to put it together, right? So all we need to do is to put the agar media into the plate, together with a biological sample of your interest, spit on it, right? And 24 hours later, you have a very simple result, I guess. We can call it a result, right? Where basically you will see bacterial growth on most of the wells, except for some. This is your primary thing. You know that that plant, or that biological sample, whatever it is, contains something that inhibits bacterial growth. Now, from this point on until the real discovery of antibiotic is still one way to go, right? We need to confirm that this is true. We need to understand that it's novel, that it's not something that we discovered before. We need to know that it's killing only bacteria, not people, because you might find something toxic that kills us as well, right? But the primary screen is there, right? So with this in mind, you know, oh yeah, another thing is that once you complete the assay, right, all we ask you to do is to fill in a simple sheet. We basically say where the samples were collected and put a plate on the sheet and take a single picture, right? This is the only digital report card that we see, right? We don't collect the samples, like you don't need to ship the plates, you don't need to analyze the plate itself, right? Basically what you can do is to upload the single digital picture to us. And this is what we see if you run this program, right? So basically, I mean, except for the occasional selfies, which we appreciate, I love to see people who are behind the research, right? But basically people send us the pictures of the plants that they chose for their screening, and they send us the report cards, which basically looks like this. Right? Where in a single piece of paper, we have all the information about what plants they screen and the results. It's extremely, extremely cheap, right? I mean, if you don't count for the labor, just making those kits, it costs us less than $1 a piece, right? And each kit can be used to screen 22 samples, which if you do a little math, right, a $1,000 investment, which is not that much, relatively speaking to the other scientific expenses, it will enable you to screen 22,000 samples, right? Just think about it, and that can be done anywhere. It doesn't have to be done in research lab, it can be done in the developing countries, it can be done in the ethnic communities, it can be done with students. Obviously, it's safe, right? Because the bacteria, where it's coming directly from your mouth. So students don't have concerns with it, ethnic communities don't have concerns with it, and the important thing is we don't transfer bacteria across the borders, right? So we don't need to, you know, file all the documents and get all the permits for this type of work. Well, and the beauty of it is always the discoveries, right? Because as you remember, the important thing is who makes the initial discovery. The discoveries are made by the local people, right? So when we do run a program like this, right, and you discover something, it's your discovery, right? You as a person who has the right to it. And even more, you can choose not to share the results with us, right? We work with some ethnic communities in Panama who use our kits to confirm their traditional knowledge, but they chose to keep the results private. So they never share those results with us. We are fine with it. In a way, I mean, I feel like it's our educational way to bring science to those people. So this is a brief snapshot of the program so far. It was invented in a way in 2012, but we got to the pilot study only in 2014, while we sorted out all the little things and the essay and everything. So far, in this year alone, we distributed 700 kits, right? So to about 700 students and 90 different instructors of different levels. Well, we started in North Carolina alone, and then we expanded into other places in the United States. And the beauty of this program, it can be done at any different level. So we have some students participating from elementary schools. I'm talking 4th grade, right? Yes, of course they need the help of the teachers, but they can do this test, just to show you how the versatile the essay is. At the same time, we have students from pharmaceutical department of Western University of Health Sciences in California who are using those kits and the educational tools to teach pharmaceutical science to students. So, as you can imagine, the versatility and the cost allows this program to basically reach all kinds of possible niches which were not possible before. So with this in mind, I was thankful for the funding for this project. It was initially funded by a joint grant between NC State University and University of Pretoria, for which I'm very happy because I'm here. We also did some work together with our Malaysian partners to optimize and develop this kit further. And the current funding for the program, which is for 2 years, it's not basically another year, is funded by NC State University. So I would like to thank my collaborators, Professor Bennett at the University of Pretoria, Patrick Van Dam in UK, and some of you probably met him here at this conference, and also Dr. Pichika from Malaysia International Medical University. These are the people who did most of the work. I'm not alone in the lab, but I will really like to acknowledge more Mickey Wilson, Brittany George, Jessica Ali, and Joksa Portis, because these were the key people behind this work. Thank you, and I'll be happy to take your questions.
Very interesting.